The Martian wind howled across the red desert, kicking up dust that danced under the twin moons. Dr. Elias Hart stood on a rocky ridge, staring down at a quiet ancient valley. His boots crunched softly against stone, his scanner buzzing quietly. In his hand, he was not supposed to be here, not without government permission. But the signal was too strange, too strong, and far too human. He looked over his shoulder at his assistant, Mira, a young exogeologist with wide eyes and a nervous voice. "This place is giving me chills," she whispered, pulling her jacket tight. Elias nodded slowly. "It should," he replied. "This place is older than any known Martian ruin." A soft beep came from the scanner, louder now. The closer they got to the valley floor, the more intense the signal became. It wasn't a natural energy signature, nor was it alien, at least not in the usual sense. It pulsed in perfect rhythm, like a heartbeat. They reached the base of the ridge where ancient stone pillars stood half buried in the sand. Each pillar had markings runes that looked eerily similar to old Earth symbols. Mira knelt beside one and ran her gloved fingers across the stone. "These symbols, they look like early human writing," she murmured. "But that's impossible." Elias whispered, "This place is light years from Earth." Suddenly, the scanner let out a sharp tone, and the ground trembled lightly beneath them. A hidden panel in the sand slid open with a soft hiss, revealing steps that led deep into the ground. Mira stepped back quickly, eyes wide with fear. "We shouldn't go in there," she said, voice shaking. Elias looked at the dark stairwell, then at the stars above. "If humans really left something here," he said, "we need to know why." The two of them descended slowly, their lights cutting through the darkness. The walls were smooth metal, not Martian, not alien, but something else. Every few feet, strange symbols glowed faintly as they passed. The deeper they went, the more the air changed. It didn't feel dead or cold like the rest of Mars. It felt waiting. At the bottom of the stairs was a large circular chamber. In the center stood a tall, silver door covered in hand-sized symbols. Mira reached out, but Elias stopped her. "Let me try," he said, and placed his palm on the center. The Quam reached out, but Elias stopped her. "Let me try," he said, and placed his palm on the center. The Pohu reached out, but unleashed his palm on the center. Door pulsed once with a soft hum, and the symbols lit up one by one. Then with a groan, the door split down the middle and slowly opened. Inside was a massive room filled with strange devices, machines, of a design neither had ever seen. But one thing stood out in the center of the room, a large stone cube, glowing faintly. Sat atop a platform, it had carvings, human faces, scenes of war, of flight, of stars, and one image that made Elias freeze in place. A carving of Earth, surrounded by what looked like hundreds of other planets. Above it all stood a single figure, human, tall and proud, his hand outstretched, touching stars. Mira's voice trembled. "What is this?" Elias stepped closer to the cube, and as he did, it lit up brighter. Suddenly, a voice echoed through the chamber, clear and deep. "If you have found this place, then you are of Earth," the voice said. "We were once many. We were once rulers of the stars." Mira gasped, backing away. Elias could barely breathe. Was this real? Was this a message from the past? From a human civilization that left Earth long ago? The voice continued. "We left our memories across the galaxy, hidden in stone and time. The truth was buried so the future could be safe." Then silence. The cube dimmed slightly, as if it had gone back to sleep. Elias turned to Mira. But before he could speak, a flash of blue light burst from the center of the room. It shot upward through the chamber ceiling, breaking into the Martian sky, all across the surface of Mars. Scanners and satellites picked up the strange energy signal, and far above, in a dark ship floating in Mars' shadow, alien eyes watched the pulse with horror. "They've awakened." The alien commander whispered. "Humanity has found one of the old sites." He turned to his second, face pale and cold. "Contact the council," he said. They were never supposed to remember. Back below, Elias stared up through the broken ceiling. The stars looked closer now. He didn't know what they had just awakened, but deep in his chest, he felt something ancient stir. The past was no longer forgotten, and the future had just changed forever. Myra couldn't sleep, not after what they had seen. She sat by the cave entrance, the Martian wind brushing against her helmet. Inside the ruins, the cube remained quiet, but something about it still felt alive, Doctor. Elias stood beside her, staring at the stars, his mind spinning with questions. Neither of them spoke for a long time. There were no words for what they had just discovered. When morning came, the two moved back into the chamber. The machines inside hadn't changed, but the air felt heavier. Like the room knew they were coming back, Elias walked over to the cube. Again, slowly this time, as if it might react to his heartbeat. He placed his hand near it, not touching, just close. Nothing happened until Mira whispered, "What if it only speaks when someone listens?" As soon as she said that, the cube flashed once, and the carvings began to glow. Then the voice returned, softer than before. "This is Memory Unit 5 of the Etherian Archive," it said. "If you are hearing this, you are of Earth's blood, or one of its chosen." Elias and Mira stood frozen. The term Etherian was unknown, yet it sounded strangely human. The cube's surface shifted, and a beam of light formed in the air. It created a clear image, a hologram of ancient humans. Standing in strange armor, they weren't just warriors, they looked like kings, like gods, tall, proud, and holding objects that looked like staffs and glowing books. The voice continued, "In the time before the collapse, we spread among the stars. We built worlds, formed alliances, fought wars, and won peace. But enemies rose, powerful ones, and we chose to disappear. To protect what remained, we buried the past." Mira stepped closer, her hands shaking slightly. "Elias," she whispered, "this isn't just history. This is something bigger." Elias nodded, unable to speak. The images changed again, showing blueprints of massive ships, cities floating in gas giants, humans teaching aliens how to write and speak. It wasn't fantasy, it was memory. Suddenly, the light flickered, and a new scene appeared. Earth, but not as it is now. There were no oceans, only structures. No clouds, only ships. Earth looked like a center of power, not a quiet blue planet. Then, the image focused on a tower, one made of black stone and gold lines. At the top stood a man with glowing eyes. He looked down at the galaxy with sorrow. Then, the light stopped, and the cube went dim, but something remained behind. A small stone disk at its base. Elias picked it up gently, brushing away dust. The disk hummed softly, then spoke in a new voice. "This is Key Alpha, bound to the bloodline of command. Use it to access Site 6. In the system of Lernas. Neither of them had heard of Lernas, but the disk had already given them coordinates. Elias looked at Mira, his expression unreadable. "They left instructions," he said quietly. "They wanted someone to find this, before they could say more." Mira's handheld scanner buzzed loudly. Something was approaching from the sky. They rushed outside, just in time to see a small ship landing in the distance. It wasn't human, and it wasn't peaceful. Black metal wings spread from its sides as it touched the ground. From the back, a tall figure stepped out, thin, armored, and holding a long staff. Its face was hidden behind a dark mask, but when it spoke, its voice was calm, almost kind. "You have awakened the silence," the alien said. "You must come with me before others find you." Mira stepped back, her hand going to the tool on her belt. Elias raised his voice. "Who are you? Why should we trust you?" The alien tilted its head, then slowly removed its mask. To their shock, it wasn't fully alien. Its face had human features mixed with something different. "My name is Nalia," she said softly. "I am a guardian of the archive, and I am part of what you were." Elias stared at her, confusion and wonder in his eyes. "Part of what we were?" he repeated. Nalia nodded. "You don't know the truth yet, but I do, because my people were made by yours. And with that, she turned and walked back to her ship. Elias and Mira looked at each other, their hearts pounding. The past was not only alive, it had begun to walk again, and now it wanted to be remembered. The stars were silent when they entered alien space. No beacons, no warnings, just darkness too quiet to be normal. Ellen sat at the front of the small research vessel, her eyes fixed on the blinking coordinate light that pointed them toward the system called Lerna's. Kalen was gone, taken by something they didn't understand. And now she was traveling with strangers, one of them not even human. The alien woman named Nalia stood quietly near the window. Not blinking, not speaking. She hadn't explained much, only that Ellen needed to come. That time was running out. Ellen didn't trust her, but she trusted the disc in her pocket less. It pulsed like a heartbeat every time they got closer to Lerna's. When they arrived, the planet below was covered in swirling mist and rings of broken satellites. Some were ancient Earth-designed ships that should have been gone thousands of years ago. Others were clearly alien, bent and fused like someone had melted them in midair. As they descended, Ellen saw the ruins, black towers, fallen cities, and one giant structure in the shape of a human eye. Carved into the mountains, the ship landed quietly on a platform of smooth stone. No animals, no trees, no movement, just silence and cold wind that whispered through the air like it carried voices. Ellen stepped off the ship and heard it, a faint sound, not quite words, not quite music. Nalia stopped beside her. "Do you hear it?" Ellen nodded slowly. "What is it?" "The past," Nalia replied, "and it remembers you." They walked into the eye temple, a place made of metal and rock, but alive somehow. Lights lit up as Ellen passed, doors opened with her touch. The walls showed scenes of a human empire so massive it made current Earth look like a village. Thousands of planets under one banner, strange creatures working alongside humans, all led by something called the Core. In the center of the temple was a great hall. At the far end sat a stone throne with no one on it. Above it floated a sphere of pure light, spinning slowly. Ellen approached, and the disc in her pocket grew hot. She held it up, and the light came down like a living rope, wrapping around her wrist gently. "Commander Ellen Rayner." A voice echoed from the light, deep and familiar. "Authorization confirmed." Ellen froze, heart pounding. "I never gave authorization," she whispered. "But you did." Voice answered. In another life, images burst into her mind, her face, but older, standing in front of legions, giving orders, holding the same disc. She saw a war, not between humans and aliens, but between humans and something far worse. A darkness that had no form, that corrupted everything it touched. The last act she remembered was sealing the archive and giving the order to wipe Earth's memory completely. She had buried humanity's greatness to save it from its own creation. Her knees hit the floor, the memories shaking her to the core. "Why now?" she asked. "Why remember all of this now?" The voice replied slowly, "Because the darkness has awakened again." Nalia knelt beside her, face calm. "My people were created to watch for signs," she said. "And you? You were always meant to return." Ellen looked into her strange, half-human eyes, searching for truth. "Then help me stop it," she said, her voice firm again. "I will," Nalia replied. "But others won't." A sudden alarm echoed through the temple. On the screen behind them, a fleet appeared, alien ships, sharp and fast, approaching fast. Nalia's face turned cold. "They found you. Who are they?" Ellen asked. "The ones who wanted your legacy dead," she replied. "They are the ones who survived the first fall." They ran back to the ship as the temple trembled. Rocks fell from the ceiling, and a strange black fog leaked through the cracks. The ship lifted off just as the mountain below exploded with light and fire. The eye temple collapsed behind them, but the core disc remained hot in Ellen's hand. She stared at it, breathing hard, knowing this was only the beginning. As the stars opened before them once more, Ellen felt different. She no longer doubted her place in this mystery. She had lived before, led before, and fought before. And now, the galaxy needed her again, not as a scientist, But as something more, Commander, the child stood alone on the frozen hill. Her silver eyes glowing in the dark, she didn't blink, didn't shiver, just stared at the human ship falling from the sky. She whispered a single word in a language that hadn't been spoken in 10,000 years. Finally, Ellen's ship hit the ground hard, skidding across sharp ice before slamming into a ridge. Alarms blared, sparks flew, and smoke filled the air inside. She coughed, unbuckled her seat, and kicked the emergency hatch open. They had jumped through a blind wormhole to escape the alien fleet, and now they were lost somewhere cold, quiet, and wrong outside. Snowflakes floated upward instead of falling down. The sky was a mix of black and deep purple, and lightning moved slowly across the clouds like it was asleep. Nalia climbed out beside her, scanning the area. "This place isn't on any star map," she said, "but the core disk led us here." Ellen pulled it from her pocket, and it glowed stronger than ever, almost humming. She looked at the readings and frowned. "It's not broken," she whispered. "It brought us here on purpose." They started walking toward a strange signal blinking far ahead. As they approached, they saw something unexpected, an old human outpost, buried under layers of frost. The walls were ancient, with symbols of the first ones carved into every stone. But this base wasn't empty. As they entered, they heard a child laughing softly. A little girl sat by a broken console, feeding small animals that glowed faintly in the dark. Her hair was white like moonlight, and her skin had thin, shining lines across it like circuitry. When she saw Ellen, she smiled not with fear, but recognition. "You came back," she said, in perfect Old Earth language. Ellen froze. "Who are you?" The girl stood up and pointed at Ellen's chest. "You were my mother." The air went still. Ellen's heart skipped a beat. "I don't understand," she said. "I've never seen you before." The girl nodded. "Not in this life, but I remember the last time, when you left me here, to protect the heart." She walked to the back of the room and pressed her hand to a hidden panel. A secret door opened, revealing a long corridor of lights and mirrors. At the end was something glowing like a star trapped in a cage. The heart. It pulsed with power older than time. The girl looked back. "This is why you came back, to wake it up." Nalia stepped forward, her voice careful. "But waking the heart means waking the guardian." The girl nodded. "Yes, and you'll need him, because the ones who destroyed the old empire are rising again." Ellen moved toward the heart, feeling its warmth pulling her closer. She didn't remember building it, didn't remember sealing this place. But something inside her did. It whispered to her, told her where to step, what to touch, how to begin the sequence. The floor shook, and the mirrors around the heart turned to display a figure locked inside a crystal. A man, tall and strong, wearing armor with Ellen's ancient symbol on his chest. His eyes were closed, but his body was perfect, untouched by time. "He was your first," the girl whispered. "Your most loyal." Ellen touched the glass, and the heart responded. Energy surged through the room, the walls lighting up like they were alive. The man's eyes opened slowly, glowing gold. He looked at Ellen and smiled faintly. "You came back for me." But before they could speak further, the base shuddered. Outside, black ships pierced the sky like knives, dropping silent machines onto the snow. Enemies had followed them again, drawn by the same signal. Ellen turned to the girl. "You have to come with us." The girl shook her head. "I can't leave. I am part of the system now, but I'll guide you." The man in the crystal stepped forward as it cracked open around him. "I am Koran," he said, voice deep and calm. "Commander's blade. Sworn forever." He took one knee before Ellen. "The war is not over, and I await your command." Ellen looked out at the sky where shadows were falling fast. She clenched the disc, felt the heartbeat of the heart behind her, and nodded slowly. Then she gave her first order, not as a scientist, not as a lost explorer, but as the commander of the first ones. "Let's show them," she said, "that humanity never forgets." The first arrow of light didn't make a sound. It sliced through the air like a whisper, hitting the ground inches from Ellen's boot. She didn't flinch. Corinne stood beside her, hand raised, his fingers still glowing from deflecting the shot. The enemies were here, not in the hundreds, but thousands. Dark machines marched down the snowy hill, their bodies tall, black, and faceless. They had no mouths, but they screamed inside her head. Ellen turned toward the heart one last time. The child was still watching from the crystal chamber, her silver eyes full of calm sadness. "I'll hold the system as long as I can," the girl said. "But once you leave, they'll know everything." Ellen nodded, her voice low but firm. "Then we don't leave quietly." Corinne raised his hand, and from beneath the snow, ancient weapons rose from the ground. Turrets and drones powered by forgotten cores lit up with blue flame. One by one, they turned to face the enemy. Nalia stepped forward with her staff, eyes glowing white. "This is what I was trained for," she whispered, "to protect the ones who remember." As the machines charged, Ellen looked down at the disk. It pulsed harder than ever, and then a new line appeared across its surface coordinates. Not just stars, but a single word written beneath it. Blood key. She knew what it meant, even if she didn't remember creating it. A final key, hidden on a distant world, encoded with her DNA. Without it, the full truth would never be unlocked, and the war could not be won. She turned to Corinne. "We need to get out of here. Now." Corinne nodded, raised both arms, and slammed them into the frozen ground. A shockwave rippled outward, clearing a path through the enemies just long enough for escape. Vela's small ship hovered above, the hatch already open. They ran together, with weapons firing all around them, ancient defenses holding the line. But it wouldn't last. As they lifted off, Ellen looked back through the window, the child raised her hand in farewell, then vanished into the light of the heart, and the base collapsed in on itself, sealing the chamber beneath layers of ice once more. The past had bought them one last chance. Hours later, the ship dropped into orbit above a red ocean planet. It had no name on the maps, just a forgotten number in a lost language. But the moment Ellen stepped out, the ground reacted. Pillars of light rose from the sea, forming a path across the waves. She followed it, step by step, until she reached a quiet island with a single tree. Beneath it, buried in the sand, was a stone box with her fingerprint etched across the top. She touched it, and the box opened without a sound. Inside was a shard of crystal wrapped in faded cloth. When she picked it up, images rushed through her mind, worlds being shaped by song, stars bending to command. The rise of a golden city that once stood where the ocean now lay, and finally, a memory of her own voice, recorded long ago. "If you are me, and you are hearing this, then you have returned too soon," her voice said. "The blood key will show you everything, but it comes at a cost. You will no longer be the person you think you are." Ellen closed her eyes, gripping the shard tightly. Her heart raced, and her breath shook. Then she whispered, "Do it." The shard melted into her hand, and pain raced through her body. She dropped to her knees, shaking as her mind split open. Flashes of who she had been came rushing back. A commander of fleets, a scientist of stars, a mother of civilizations, and a destroyer of threats that could not be reasoned with. She had made the choice to erase humanity's memory to protect it from the truth. Now the truth had returned. And so had she. Back on the ship, Corinne and Nalia felt the shift before the scanners did. Corinne whispered, "She remembers." Nalia nodded, her voice almost a prayer. "Then the enemy will come faster now." Far across the galaxy, deep in a black void where light did not enter, something stirred. Eyes opened where there were none. Voices whispered where no breath should exist. They felt her awakening, and they were hungry. Ellen stood slowly, her eyes glowing faintly like twin suns. She looked toward the sky where stars burned bright. And somewhere beyond them, her past was waiting. The voice came from inside the ship. But no one had spoken. Jason turned sharply, his hand already on the blood key. Vela froze, scanning the room. Varco stepped forward, armor humming low like it sensed danger. The whisper came again, his name, stretched out in cold. Jason? Then silence. They were inside the old cruiser, abandoned for centuries, floating near a red dwarf star. This was supposed to be the next vault, the next memory. But something was wrong. The doors had opened before Jason even arrived. The systems were already online. Someone had been here first. Jason moved through the long corridor, each step quiet but sharp. The ship groaned like it was remembering pain, deep in its center. The control chamber flickered with weak lights, but when he entered, he stopped staring at the figure standing there, waiting. It was his crew member, Arel. She turned slowly, a soft smile on her face. Jason stepped closer, confused. Arel? She nodded. I wondered how long it would take for you to remember. Then her eyes changed, shifting from warm brown to glowing red. Varkos drew his blade instantly, stepping between them. You're not her, he growled. No, she said calmly. I'm what your people left behind. The walls around them began to shift, metal reshaping itself like it was alive. You thought memory was safe, she said. You thought forgetting would stop the fire. But forgetting doesn't erase us. It only gives us time to grow stronger. Jason felt the blood key grow warm in his hand, almost burning. The traitor Arel, or whatever she was, reached into the ship's core and pulled out a small device. It pulsed black and red, dripping strange mist into the air. This, she said, is the beacon of truth. It will tell every sleeping world what you buried. Jason lunged, but she vanished before he could reach her. Only laughter remained, echoing through the walls. Outside, the ship shook violently. Vela grabbed the console and gasped. She opened a signal across the galaxy. Images appeared, humans in hiding, vaults opening, weapons reactivating, but also creatures waking in the void, shadows with eyes, old enemies. They had heard the call, and they remembered everything. Jason dropped to his knees, overwhelmed by the weight of what had been released. He saw Earth, still unaware, still silent, but for how long? Now the enemy knew. Now the war wasn't coming, it had already started. Varkos stood beside him, silent but ready. Vela touched Jason's shoulder gently. This is what they feared, she said. Not the truth, but how the galaxy would react to it. Jason stood, the blood key now cool again. He looked at the stars outside the ship, and his voice was steady. Then let them come, he said. We're not just memories. We are what made the stars tremble, and far across the dark, something did tremble. The stars were no longer silent. They whispered Jason's name. Across old coms, forgotten machines, and deep within alien dreams, the signal had spread farther than anyone expected, and now it could not be taken back. Jason stood at the center of the Earth Alliance Command, a place that once laughed at ruins and myths. Now, all eyes watched him like he was not a man, but a returned god. Behind him stood Varkos, shining in golden armor from a forgotten time. Beside him, Vela held the knowledge of her people, descendants of the humans that once ruled the stars. Before him sat the leaders of Earth, silent and pale. Jason placed the blood key on the table, its glow pulsing slowly like a heartbeat. You buried it, Jason said. You erased the truth to protect us. But the truth has a way of digging itself out. A screen behind him lit up, showing hundreds of awakened vaults. Not just on Earth, but on moons, asteroids, dead planets, warriors, scholars, machines, human creations long lost, now active again, and worse, other signals, enemy fleets, rising from black holes and dark space, drawn to the light. One commander stood and pointed. You expect us to fight something from myths? Jason didn't blink. No, he said. I expect us to become what we were, then. For the first time in 10,000 years, Earth's core activated. Below the oceans, forgotten cities lit up. Satellites that no one built appeared in orbit, aligning like a crown around the planet. People around the world looked to the sky as golden rain began to fall. Old instincts returned. Children spoke words they didn't know, Elders dreamed of places they had never seen. The blood remembered. Jason stepped onto the balcony of the command center. Looking down at the people gathering below, he raised his voice, not loud, but powerful. "We are not broken," he said. "We are not lost. We are the fire that lit the stars. And now we rise across the galaxy." Ships that once served the old flame began to move again. Some were controlled by a is still loyal to their last order. Others were guided by humans waking from stasis, those who had slept longer than Earth had history. Varkos looked to the sky and nodded. "The army returns," he said. "The war will follow." In the dark corners of the galaxy, the Ashburn gathered. Their leaders hissed in rage, their minds screaming at the return of the one they called the Commander of Silence. But even they hesitated, because they remembered what humans had done to them before, and they feared it could happen. Again, Vela touched Jason's hand gently. "Are you ready?" she asked. He looked at her, then at Earth below. "No," he said honestly. "But I remember now." And that was enough. The old fleet rose above Earth, forming a shape the galaxy had forgotten. A symbol burned across space, the same one from the ancient memory. A circle split by a line, the mark of the first ones, the mark of humanity. The stars no longer whispered, now they shouted. They shouted that humanity had returned, not as explorers, not as victims, but as rulers reborn from their own forgotten fire, and the galaxy would never be the same again.